Welcome to Houdini for the New Artist. If we haven't met yet, my name is Tyler Bay, and I'm the owner of CG Forge, which is an online Houdini school that offers really high-quality courses, all sorts of resources, and one-on-one mentorships that are designed to help you reach your specific goals. What I'd like to do in this first course is set you in the right direction. I've worked with many people that have started Houdini for the first time. I've seen some things that have worked well and that have not worked well. And I'm going to give you not only a hands-on project to start things off with, but also practical advice and just what you need to know to make the most of your time. The first thing we'll do is take an awesome scene that we find on Sketchfab, bring it into Houdini, and render it out. So without further ado, let's check it out. Go to sketchfab.com and we're going to search for VV. So VIVI. The first result here is an amazing model that was made by Chris Lee. I want to give him credit for that because this wizard scene is awesome. Scroll down the page and click on the download 3D model. We're going to bring him in as a FBX file. So that'll bring the textures, the model, everything we need to bring this into Houdini. Now, naturally, this is going to lead us to our first topic of conversation, which is how to structure your files when you make a new project. So here I have my desktop, Houdini for the New Artist, and I'm going to make a few folders here. Ref is going to be any reference images that I need for inspiration as I go along. Textures is going to be for texture maps if I have things I need to texture. Render will be any images I make from Houdini. So kind of like the final product, if you will. And we're going to make Geo, which is where VV will live. So Geo for geometry, one more folder here. We're going to make this VV, and I will save out that zip file. So once I do that, let's go ahead and extract this so that all of the stuff is right here, and we are good to go. Before we get going in Houdini, let's also save out our file. So File, Save As, and if we browse for that directory, it's important to save your HIP file at the top. So in other words, we're here at our folders that we just made, right? I'm going to say VV version 1, and just make sure that your scene file is right here and all the subfolders come after that. You don't want to make a separate folder for your scene files, because eventually it's going to be important that this here happens before the subfolders. I'll show you why down the road, but just believe me for now that that's what you want to do. So that about does it for the file structure to get you started. Let's change topics now, and I want to tell you the most important thing for you to understand about Houdini right now. The most important thing is that everything you do is going to be done with nodes. And this is very different than other applications. So let me show you what I mean. At the bottom right of our interface, this is where the node tree lives. If I press tab, this will bring up a menu of all the nodes, and I can just start typing. So in this case, I'm going to type in Geo for geometry. It'll highlight that, press enter, and enter one more time to set down that node. When I did that, it selected the node and brought up the parameters or the settings up here, which right now is the translates, rotate, scale, stuff to move things around. So whenever you make this Geo node, you make a container. I think of it like a bucket that holds all your geometry inside of there. Let's go ahead and click on this text, and we're going to call this VV spacebar, which creates that underscore, Geo. Now to enter inside of that node, to go inside the bucket, go ahead and highlight that and press enter. To go back, look here at the top, we have a little file path, right? So I can just click on the OBJ, and that brings me back to that part of my network. And I can double click to bring me back inside that node. Now, I want to import VV. Like I said, nodes just do stuff in your scene. So we created a bucket that holds geometry, and now I'm going to fill that bucket using a file node. So type in file, let's go to the top here and find our hero, VV, under geometry, VV, source. And there we go. Now that information has been brought in by the file node. That information is then represented within our viewport right here. And to move around the viewport, hold down spacebar F to frame. Think F for framing. Hold down Alt, left mouse to tumble, Alt middle to pan, and Alt right to zoom. The same goes for the node graph over here, by the way. Middle mouse is going to pan, right is going to zoom. So like I said before, this is different than other applications. Because in other applications, if you want to do stuff, you need to find the right button or the right hotkey that does it. And that's not how Houdini works. In Houdini, you need to find the right node or the right series of nodes to build whatever it is that you're trying to make. All right, so back to the task at hand. If we tumble around our viewport and inspect Vivi, you'll notice that he is a whopping 300 meters in width. He's huge. And by the way, Houdini's units is going to be in meters. So just so you know, if you're trying to make things the scale that they should be, we need to go smaller. So again, we need to bring Vivi down. Like I said before, if you want to do anything in Houdini, there's a node for that. In this case, I'm going to highlight the file node, press tab, and type in transform. This time, instead of pressing enter, try pressing shift and then enter once that node is highlighted. What that will do is it'll make a brand new node and automatically connect it. So if I didn't do that, if I just said transform and I found a good spot and I pressed enter right there, I would have to manually connect these nodes like that. But again, shift enter will do that automatically. Okay, so with the transform here, if I change this uniform scale, nothing happens. Why don't we see any difference in our viewport? Well, that's because of the visibility flag. So this blue visibility flag tells the viewport what it should show you. And to change that, we can go to the node, hover over that, and press this eye icon. Or you can just go to the very right-hand side of that node and press that as well. That brought over that blue visibility, and now we can actually see this taking place. The information got brought in here with the file SOP, and then it went down here to this transform where that information was modified. So think of it like that. I think this might have been made inside of Maya. So the right uniform scale here is going to be 0.01. Go ahead and hit enter. It looks like he's gone, but he's just really small. Again, spacebar F to frame. And now he is only a mere 3 or 4 meters in width, which is much more appropriate. Okay, cool. As you can imagine, there's multiple ways of doing things in Houdini. So let's say that I didn't want to use this transform node for whatever reason. To turn it off, hover over the node, and we're going to press this little down arrow, this little yellow down arrow. Or again, you can go to the left-hand side of that node and click on that tick. As we can see, we turned off the node. So the node no longer works. It's just passing information through it. So that's how you turn nodes off. But like I said before, there's multiple ways of doing things here. So if we go to the object level again, so this OBJ path, you might think, okay, well, I want to scale it down over here instead. Hit tab and start typing in transform, and we don't have a transform. What's up with that? We have the extract transform, but there's actually not a transform node here. Well, the reason why that's happening is because of something called contexts inside of Houdini. So right now, if we look at this word right here, we're at the object level. So it says objects right here. If I go inside of the network, so again, highlight the node, press enter, we are now in the geometry context. And if I press tab, we have all kinds of nodes related to tasks which modify geometry. At the top here, we have all kinds of nodes that are related to creating lights, to creating geometry containers, to importing things that are designed to bring things into our scene. So think of it like this. The contexts have different purposes. The purpose of the object context here is to bring stuff in or create objects, to make those containers which hold stuff. The purpose inside of the geometry context is to modify geometry or bring geometry in some kind of way. Also, if we go to the top here, hold down left mouse, and you'll see that we have these other contexts as well. The material context is all the nodes related to creating materials. The out context is all the nodes related to rendering things out. So if we wanted to make a karma or a mantra node, something like that, we can find it here. Things, again, related to rendering. And really, the three main contexts you need to start out with here is going to be the object, the material, and the out. So back to our conundrum here of how to scale this down, I could go to this geometry container and instead go to the parameters of that container. So here in the uniform scale, I could say 0.01, and that will bring VV down as well. However, and I get this question quite a bit, is it better to transform this down here at the object level, or is it better to do so here in the geometry context? Well, most often you want to do that in the geometry context. The transforms here at the object level are designed more so for keyframe animation. So I like leaving these alone as much as I can and only using this if I'm trying to keyframe something. However, inside of the geometry context, this is where we want to bring things to their default pose. In other words, their rest position. So unbypass that transform, and that's how we're going to do this. There's one more thing I want to do in this video. Let's go ahead and highlight the transform node, hit tab, and we're going to create a match size SOP. Shift enter, and look at that. We've moved him around. This node right here is going to allow us to make VV perfectly flush with the scene grid. So I don't want him living underneath this grid. I want him right on top. Don't worry about these settings too much for right now. Just go down to the justify Y and set this so that it's at the minimum. Now VV is perfectly flush with the grid, and we have brought him in successfully. So my friends, what is the moral of this video? Well, the moral of the story here is that Houdini's interface isn't hard, and it's not really about the interface. The hard part is wrapping your head around all the different nodes to use and then knowing how to put them together. That's the name of the game when you use Houdini. But we have kind of a problem here, and this is no doubt going to terrify most of you. If you hit tab and press the space bar, look at what happens. We have thousands of nodes, it looks like, just so many of these things that all have parameters and are all complicated. And I'm sure right about now, most of you guys are asking yourself, like, how am I going to learn all that? How the heck am I going to master Houdini when there are thousands of nodes and thousands of parameters and it seems endless? Well, stay tuned because I'm going to help you answer that question in the next video. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the next video on the playlist. If you're watching this at CG Forge, then check out the next video on CG Forge. I'll see you then.